start by introducing ourselves a bit. So my nickname on IRC, where most people know me, is Anansha. I'm a former conspiracy theorist. I used to be a 9/11 truther back in the days. I turned out skeptic over the time due to the conclusions of the research I've been doing on the subject. So nowadays I'm not so sure that it's a conspiracy as I used to be. I always had an interest for the mysterious things and strange stuff, so I study history. And I hope we have interesting debates on this show. There's my co-host Kit, who's with us right now.
Yeah, hey, this is Kit, and I'm really happy to be part of this show. The Flipside is in essence a debate show where skeptics of all descriptions can argue their case. We'll always have both sides of an argument represented, but we do value evidence and references. So for this reason, we have made a blog where all participants of the show can have their links and references posted so the audience can make up their own minds. And the link for this blog is on the hosts page of darkcityradio.com. I've always liked, quote-unquote, conspiracy theories as well as skepticism, and I always wanted to listen to knowledgeable people from both angles trying to debate, and now it turns out I get to make that show myself, so I hope you'll be entertained, outraged, and hopefully enlightened.
Indeed. So we're going to have a debate. At the end of the show, people will be able to call in. We're going to do a bit of talking first, but then we'll have a conversation that might not be timed at the end. So I was thinking that today we could start with the mother of all conspiracies, which is Freemasonry. People have a lot to say about it. So I thought I would do maybe a bit of backstory on it. So I'm not sure exactly where to start because there's so much of it, so I might leave some of it out. I know some of you people are probably very knowledgeable on this stuff, so please bear with me. So as we all know, the origins of Freemasonry is mainly based in legitimate masonry. What I mean by that is people who actually built stuff. Then, just a second, I think I lost sound. I'm back. So, there we go. So I was saying the origins of Freemasonry. So basically what happened is that it developed as a society of Masons who would want to keep their secret about how they built all this stuff because back in the days that meant money. So if people stole your secrets, you would probably just end up losing your job. So I see people yelling at me already in the chat. It's a good start. So
yeah, let them yell. You got the air.
Indeed. So the way it works basically is that there is more than one Grand Lodge. So it's not like a united big grand conspiracy. There's the Grand Lodge of England and the Grand Orient de France, which is basically the secular aspect of Freemasonry, and the Lodge of England is the lodges that require their members to believe in a supreme being. The whole precept of it is about doing charity work through community, moral uprightness, and the development of fraternal friendship and personal qualities. If you want a reference to that, you might look up James Anderson's constitutions, which were basically the first constitutions written for the Freemasonry. And they did indeed influence the Constitution of America, but not in the way you might think.
So why do you think there are so many conspiracies regarding the Freemasons?
Well, I think part of it is largely due to the Catholic Church back in the days, who was really, really against Freemasonry because they saw it as a competitor. So they had many Catholic members who were also Freemasons, and the church did not like that. At the time, they did start to spread rumors about Freemasonry being mainly satanic and stuff like that. So those rumors sadly persist to this day, but they don't hold much truth to it. I know for a fact that there was a man in France named Leo Taxil, This guy was a bit of a satirist. He was really a comedian in the soul. So the way he worked is he basically trolled both the Catholic Church and Freemasonry by publishing a book called Les Mystères de la Franc-Maçonnerie, which translates to The Mysteries of Freemasonry. That he claimed to be a member of the Freemasons and to expose their rituals and their satanic influences in that book. The Pope actually believed this stuff, promoted Mr. Taxil in the church, and actually used it as proof on his crusade against the Freemasons, basically. Then Leo Taxil basically told the Pope directly, well, it was all a joke, haha, joke's on you, and I don't like the church either, by the way. So he was excommunicated, and basically the Freemasons and the church both hate him, which is kind of an exploit.
That's pretty good, but don't you think it could have something to do with the fact that they actually do have secret rituals and there's so much secrecy for what they do inside the lodges? I mean, they're very open with their charity work, but what they actually it goes on for the individual Freemasons in the group is quite the secret. And don't you think that could lead to conspiracies?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as soon as people don't know what's going on somewhere, they're bound to make up shit about it. I mean, if I have a box, I don't tell you what's in it, but I say it's really important. You could basically go around and tell people that the head of the Queen of England is in that box, and nobody could actually stop you because I want to keep secret what's in it. So I think that's the way it mostly works, but Freemasons themselves would describe themselves as a society with secrets and not a secret society per se.
Right, yeah, because they're not very secret. They're not, in fact, a secret society. I mean, you can look them up in the phone book.
Indeed, and you can actually go visit lodges and talk to them. They just keep secret stuff about rituals because it has a lot to do with privacy. Those rituals are not meant to be widely interpreted. I guess they have to be within a certain context. So it's more of a faith thing, I would say.
And why do you think there's this discrepancy between the lodges of the Supreme Being? I mean, that's quite a big thing.
Indeed. Well, what happened is the Grand Lodge of England is most ancient, and they did require the belief in the Supreme Being for the longest time. And at some point, the Catholic Church was doing a lot of harassment of Freemasons and trying to ban them in different countries. In France, where it was particularly secular at that time, they decided to keep practicing Freemasonry, but they kind of got rid of the requirement to believe in a supreme being, mostly due to their opposition to the Catholic Church. So that created kind of a rift between the Grand Orient de France and the Grand Lodge of England.
But essentially what they're doing is the same thing. It's charity and personal development, right?
Yep, the same rituals, basically the same values. The only thing that's different is their requirement to believe in a supreme being or not. The thing, though, is that if you are a member of a lodge that is recognized by the United Grand Lodge of England, you cannot attend meetings of irregular lodge. So if you actually do that, you might end up being banned from your lodge.
Right. So Kali in the chat is bringing up a really good point that Freemasons are extremely loyal to one another, and I guess that could turn into some sort of corruption of power if members of the same lodge are all in what do you say in places of power, then that could be a bad thing, right?
Right. Well, that could happen basically with most belief system. I mean, if you look at the Catholic Church, I know I bring that example a lot, but there were a lot of Catholic leaders in the various countries, and do we claim that there was a Catholic conspiracy to take over the world? Well, some people might, but I don't think that's the whole point. There were secret societies that did exploit those aspects of secrecy, I guess. Even in Freemasonry, there was the P2 Lodge in Italy that was convicted on many levels of corruption. Actually, Silvio Berlusconi was part of it. And they were involved in murder and some corruption at high levels, and they were never recognized by any Grand United Lodge. So they were basically banned from everything after that scandal. But this is bound to happen with any group, I guess. So I don't know exactly why Freemasons are worse.
Well, I think they, with their garb and their rituals, they've built up quite an aura of mysticism around themselves. So I think they kind of thrive on the whole conspiracy thing.
I don't know about that. They tend to try to avoid it, but they won't respond to it. I think that's the main thing. They refuse to respond to those conspiracy theories, so people can make up pretty much whatever they want to because there's no one to argue against it.
True.
In fact, a little thing that is not known a lot, because I've seen people claim that Freemasonry was basis for the Ku Klux Klan, which is not actually true. It was pretty much copied from former members who were banned. But there was Prince Hall Freemasonry in the United States, which is actually an African-American lodge before the abolition of slavery. And they were recognized basically by pretty much the Grand Lodges since their inception. So that shows that Freemasons actually were at the forefront of banning slavery and equal rights.
Those are all good things, but again, Kali brings up in the chat that there's an actual oath of loyalty, and that doesn't happen in the church.
That doesn't happen in the church? Well, what is your first communion then? I'm sorry, but as soon as you're born, you're made to swear loyalty to the church. So I'm not sure where you're coming from with that.
But not to other members of the church, though. You're loyal to your brothers in the lodge, but not necessarily to your fellow churchgoers.
Well, I would say that's debatable, but either way, I mean, if you're part of a group, you're bound to be loyal to other members of that group, whichever group it is. So I don't see what's the big deal, because there are prominent people who did go to positions of power who were Freemasons, but there are people from various different groups who as well managed to do that. So I'm not sure if we're suggesting banning Freemasons from acceding to power, but I don't think that would be fair.
Fair enough. I know that I'm part of the same group as you, and I'm very loyal to you, so I guess you do have a point.
Yeah, those are things that are bound to happen, but are not exclusive to Freemasonry.
Indeed. So now, I'd like to know how we handle callers to the show, but it seems like our helper has fallen asleep.
No, I'm awake.
Alright, so can people call into the show today, or is that...
Sure.
The only way they'd be able to do it at the moment is by either contacting yourself, Anon Shaw, or myself, and us dragging them into the call.
Alright, we'll do that then. In that case, if you want to call into the show, please add DaneFag to your Skype, and we will drag you into the call, and we will have a nice discussion about secret societies or Freemasons in particular, which is our topic for today. And
while you're fiddling with this, I'll just answer. Lord Bow said that Freemasonry is a very much male-dominated organization. And I would tend to agree. For most of its history, it has been very male-dominated, but in the later years, they added the Order of the Eastern Star, which someone actually just posted, which is basically the female branch of Freemasonry. So like pretty much every old organization, they kind of evolved with the times.
I know because I have a very close friend whose father was a third degree Freemason. And I know that there's in her city, in Switzerland, there's a similar organization for strictly females. And they wanted her to be a part of it, but she didn't have any interest in it. So they're basically copying everything from the Freemasons, but I do believe they go under a different name.
Right.
but that's all female. And as my friend said, that is completely retarded. If we're going to be doing this female thing, let's have mixed lodges. That makes a lot more sense.
I would tend to agree, but those are old traditions, and it takes time to change this stuff. So the way I see it is, it's bound to happen one day or another.
So why do you think that that the Illuminati and the Knights Templar and Freemasons are all sort of connected together in a lot of theories?
Well, what happened is, after the Templars were disbanded by the church, which, by the way, was due to France owing money to them, and then the King of France actually plotted with the Pope to spread rumors about satanic origins, which was basically bullshit. But after that disbanding, several members of the Templars actually fled to Scotland. So there were rumors that some members of the Templars actually participated in the formation of Scottish Rite Freemasonry, which is not impossible, by the way, but I don't think it means that they had an intent to control the world. At least I don't see it, if there is.
I think everybody who finds themselves in a position to influence the world will try to influence the world, not necessarily in a nefarious way, but in a way that they feel that the world could get better. I think that's natural, and I don't think there's anything... well, there could be something wrong with that, but there isn't necessarily something wrong with that.
Well, that's true, but at the same time, one of the main teachings in Freemasonry is that you don't have to change the world, but you have to change yourself. They focus a lot on the self. It's all about the symbolism of taking a rough piece of brick and then working on it, making it perfect. That's the idea. So I don't know if they're out to save the world more than save themselves, to be honest. I think we got a caller in the call.
I think Robo is a helper and not a caller.
Okay.
But somebody is bringing up the Golden Dawn, which I thought was interesting. Basically, Anthony says it's basically a Masonic organization. I did not know that. Is that true?
Well, the Golden Dawn has a lot in common with Masonry, mainly due to the fact that the members who started it were former Freemasons. They were thrown out of Freemasonry, so they started their own stuff. So there's a lot of organizations started by former Freemasons. Scientology is even one. So they reuse some of the concepts, but not necessarily in the same tradition. The Ku Klux Klan, as I mentioned earlier, is also influenced heavily by Freemasonry, but not necessarily in a good way.
Well, they do have their Grand Wizards instead of their, Grand Masters?
Yeah, it's based on Grand Masters, but they call them Grand Wizards for some reason, but yeah. And they have a lot of the symbolism and the secret handshakes as well, but as I said, it's mostly stuff that was started by former members who were disgruntled and decided to start their own offshoot.
I see. Well, I guess that's natural. I mean, if you get kicked out of one organization, you want something to substitute it with, and you think you have the better way. I guess that's a natural sort of progression of things. I've seen that in other places.
Like with everyone else, they are very human, so they do human stuff.
I heard from a friend, from my close friend, whose dad was a Freemason. He started out as somebody who was extremely attached to money, and couldn't think about anything but making money, and in any way that he could, whether it was like legitimate business or lying or cheating or stealing or whatever. And he became a Freemason. And she said that as he progressed through the ranks in Freemasonry, he completely changed and became a really nice person to be around. And it makes me so curious about what they actually do. But as far as I could understand from her, it was very much about just personal development.
Yeah, well, I can't claim to be a Mason myself, but my grandfather was actually Grand Master of a lodge, so I happened to learn a lot of stuff about it. And I couldn't join due to the fact that I don't believe in a supreme being, but that's another story. But it is very, very much oriented on self-development. So that's why they don't actually go out and brag about all the good charity work they do. They believe a lot in leading by example and not having to yell at everyone how they should live.
Yeah, and I'm not afraid to admit that I myself have received charity from the Freemasons. It looked like we were going to have a caller, but the call failed, unfortunately.
Oh, well.
I'm hoping she will join us soon. There she is. Hello, Susan.
Hello there.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. Hello.
Yes. Hello. Hello, Kit. Hello. I didn't catch your name. Great show.
Thank you. So did you have something to share with us?
Yes, I just like to say it's a great show and you're touching on...
Well, I appreciate that. I'm just gonna respond quickly to Strawman, who said he asked if I think the younger Masons would like to see a better world. That's a tough one. I mean, pretty much everyone will want to see a better world, I think, except maybe evil cunts, but I don't think they're any different than any other people, so I would say yes.
Well, I think anyone who joins an organization like that it must be an idealist, because you do sort of condemn yourself to secrecy, and most people are not wired that way. So I think you must have some sort of idealism, and also just you spending time on a project like that. I mean, you must be an idealist to join.
Yeah, indeed. It's not for the cynical, definitely. I mean, the point is to improve yourself. But if you don't believe in yourself to start with, it's going to be a tough road, I guess.
That's a very good point. I wish we would get more callers. This is not much of a debate show, huh?
Indeed.
Hello. I'm
Hello.
back again.
Welcome back.
G'day, Kid. G'day, Richard. I was answering the radio. I had the radio on. I was listening to it. Great show. Really good. So really please do continue. It's a pleasure to listen to you both. And you bring another side into the Masonry. You bring another perception of what the Freemasons are and what they actually do, and, make it a healthy debate. So good on you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's mainly the goal of the show. Hence the name, The Flipside.
Yes, we did have an idea after listening to quite a few Darkcity radio shows that it's kind of either or. It's very much there's very little actual opposing news going on, and I love opposing news. A good debate is awesome, and I would like to have more self-proclaimed skeptics listen to each other and actually see what each other's arguments are, and not just stand on your own belief and only associate with people who share the same belief. I learned something valuable one day, which was when you're listening to arguments, or before you enter a debate, think for yourself what evidence or which argument would be able to change my mind on this topic. And if nothing can change your mind on this topic, maybe your opinion isn't really based on rationality or facts. Maybe it's more of an emotional opinion, which is also okay, but then it's difficult to debate it.
Indeed. In fact, I think it was James Randi who said that any person who wants to call themselves a skeptic has to demand to be convinced.
And there's nothing wrong with being wrong. I think a lot of people are afraid of being proven wrong. I think being able to be proved wrong and learning something is a great thing, because it shows that you're a flexible human being, and that you are willing to learn from people who know better than you.
Oh, yes, Kit, I so agree. I've researched many things, and I've always at the end of it, and I stand to be corrected. Please do, and it's a pleasure to be corrected. Sometimes I don't like it at the time, but, it's like, oh, hang on a minute. And also having knowledge without experience is another thing as well. And I think the Masons sort of touch a little bit on that. This is something that you can experience if you do it this way. So, and the Golden Dawn, I think that's a topic that a few on Darkcity have touched. It's definitely worth researching. Who are they? What do they do? How did it happen? But thank you, Kit. Richard, take it away. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm just going to answer quickly. I think it was Anthony who asked if there was links between Freemasonry and Zionism. And to be quite honest, I think it's quite the opposite, because Zionism is basically organized religion as well, and they see Freemasonry as a competitor to their control. So it's pretty much like the Catholic Church. So there's a lot of opposition actually to what Israel is doing in Palestine right now, especially in the Grand Orient de France, which is the secular side of Freemasonry. They are a lot more politically outspoken, so they have been opposed to a lot of what Zionism has accomplished in the last century.
And Rabbit Pinch asked, let me see, I've seen artwork on the walls of Grand Lodges being used to explain some scientific theory. Was this the intention of the artwork? I don't know if you can answer that.
I guess we would have to ask the artist. But I think the main intention of artwork within the Freemasonry lodges is to explain the concepts to the members. Every piece of art, every ritual, every theater piece they do is actually to explain some of the principles within Freemasonry. So maybe it just happened to coincide with science.
Quantum physics? Yes, it does.
Wait, quantum physics?
Correct, yes.
Right. Well, quantum physics is mostly theoretical, though, to be fair.
Yeah, depending on if you are observing it or you're actually participating.
Right. Well, I'm not a physicist, so I'm not gonna thread there because I might be wrong.
And I stand to be corrected, as always. Thank you.
And
Indeed.
so somebody said in the chat that it's quite normal to find one side on Darkcity Radio because pro-Freemason and pro-system you can listen to on mainstream radio. And I'd just like to clarify that it's not a question of being pro-anything. It's a question of having opposing sides, having an actual debate under circumstances where a debate can be fruitful. And where references and documentation can be presented to people in a way that you can make up your own mind. So it's not about being pro anything, except we want opposing sides always.
Yes, and if I may, the word pro is before you enter. So before you enter the city. Like pro polis. Polis is a Latin word for city. So before you enter the city, pro.
Good point.
Thank you.
Indeed. The whole goal is to let everyone speak their mind, no matter what their perception might be. And hopefully we can learn something.
Oh, definitely.
So do we got any more people who want to call in? I guess not.
Richard, what knowledge do you have of the Golden Dawn, if I may ask? I don't know if you have other questions from the other chat rooms, but...
I don't have that much knowledge on the Golden Dawn specifically, but I know a lot about Aleister Crowley and his passage in the group, so I might maybe expand a bit on that.
I had what would you call it, a metaphysical experience of the Golden Dawn. Yeah, I was on my journey to discover what they were doing and why it was done. And for me, it was a little bit like The Secret. They had touched, opened, but not fully experienced what the Golden Dawn actually, when it started, it was a environmental experience of what the Golden Dawn is about, but they weren't able to sustain that, what would you call it? I don't even know what the word is. Energy. So I did a little bit of research on the people and who they were and their relationship. And my knowledge is, I can't quite remember the story. So would you give a little quick story on the knowledge you have on the Golden Dawn? And And go on. Thank you.
Sure. Well, what I know about the Golden Dawn is mostly that it was an offshoot of Freemasonry. They did reuse a lot of the rituals, but they also incorporated the magic with a K, which is not stage magic, but ritual magic. So I know they incorporated a lot of mysticism into Freemasonry rituals. So that's part of why they had to be a separate group from regular Freemasonry. But as I said, I don't know that much about the mystical aspects of it because I don't really believe in it. I respect people who do actually, but I haven't researched that aspect that much, to be honest.
Yes, and I do believe you have someone who's come in to talk. I don't know if they're still here. It is because they have touched on something quite big, and I think a few people because if you're not grounded in the energy, you can get pulled off. And I totally understand how churches, people who they work in a lot of energy. Hello, Stu. Welcome.
Hello there. All right.
And I can see how it would be very easy to be distracted away from your point of origin of contact. So, like Darkcity, like you, Richard and Kit, are trying to bring in a healthy representation of all that are, involved in here, where we are today. And welcome to Darkcity, too. I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Hi there. I'd just like to say thanks very much for having this show. It's, I think it's important to have a balanced opinion. I've actually fallen out with a few people over the last week or two. For me, there's a lot of conspiracy facts that are happening right in front of our eyes with full evidence. For one example, I don't know how many people outside the UK are aware of the attacks on the disabled by the government. Disabled people are being assessed with something that can basically be described as a Nazi death panel by a French company called Atos, where we're seeing people with cancer being declared fit for work. And was it from 2011? In 2011, there were 10,600 disabled people who died after being declared fit for work. That's a conspiracy fact that is happening right underneath people's noses. Yet so many people are focused on 9/11 or focused on debating whether nuclear weapons exist, and it really, really frustrates me.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. I mean, often the conspiracy theories will actually cloud the real issues, and that's very frustrating. I can totally get that.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be a conspiracy theorist. For quite a few years, I believed in the 9/11 conspiracy. I also believed a lot on the Rothschilds, conspiracies, etc., etc. And I don't know, as I've grown up and matured and sort of thought about things a lot more. I mean, for example, I brushed on the Rothschilds. Sure, they've done some bad things and very, very sort of very nasty things within their self-interest, but that can be said about any bank. If you focus on any Russian bank or Islamic banks, any bank around the world, they've all got blood on their hands. They've all got dirty things.
Yeah, they weren't special. They were just greedy, and they are greedy people pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. But for me, one of the biggest issues is the attacks on the disabled that are going on in the UK. I mean, just 2 days ago, a friend of mine attempted suicide because he was declared fit for work, had his benefits cut. I've known 2 people who have actually successfully committed suicide over the last year and a half. And like I said, there's some very, very good, intelligent people who follow the conspiracy theory stuff, and they focus so much time and energy into things that don't exist, or probably don't exist, I should say, when there are things that are happening right now, every single day, out in the open, that people ignore. And that's just basically what I wanted to say. So thanks very, very much for having this show, and I'll be listening.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Cool. Cheers.
Thank you, Stu.
Stay. Yeah, you're welcome. Stay too. Don't. Yeah. Absolutely. You know, I am what would you call it? A service provider. And the people you speak of are called clients. That is the generic name at the moment. Clients. And I quite like that. You know, a service is being provided, I being the service provider, to the client. What is the needs of the client, or what is your requirement that will enable you to reach your goals? So I fully understand your compassion there too, because I've worked in many different aspects of that industry. As you're aware, there's many aspects to that industry. And again, it depends on your perception, you know, how you perceive your quality of life. What is it that you feel would give you quality of life? And that at the end of the day still holds true for me, you know. What is it that I want? What will give me quality of life? But, so yeah, I hear your compassion. I do. I really do.
So you can hear my frustration as well. I mean, I listened into a dark radio show, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I don't want to disrespect the people that took part in it, but it was so one-sided. And to have a lengthy discussion as to whether nuclear bombs exist. You know, people were trying to say that the Nagasaki and Hiroshima bombs were false flag incidents created by, I don't know, projections. And that completely blew my mind. I mean, these people who were in the show, they actually came across as being fairly intelligent. There was another chap who was claiming that the CIA was hacking into his brain, forcing him to stab his father, and running a false flag. Yeah.
All are welcome on the Darkcity.
Sure.
Well,
sure.
There you go. The cats are in. Look out, the cats have landed. The animals are here.
And other things like the wars of aggressions over in the Middle East, where hundreds of thousands of people are dying. I mean, that's a conspiracy fact that is happening this very day and has been happening for, over a decade now.
I think at some point there are so many rabbit holes. You could spend years, days, a second, or not even go down the rabbit hole. So I think for me, I just think event. Am I on the event horizon? Am I inside the freaking event? Where am I on this event? And what perception am I perceiving? You know, it can get quite rabbit holey. And, you know, there's so many things like the looking glass, you know, what a frequency can do to your thoughts, the sound of one frequency, how it will change your thought. So, I can understand where the conspiracy stuff comes in, because it's the event did happen, the aftermath of the event, you know. So, like you said,
there's a lot of
all these events.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed is there's a lot of selection bias and cognitive dissonance with hardcore believers of conspiracy theories, where they will go out and they'll look at all the evidence, but they'll cherry pick the bits and pieces that fit their theories rather than look at all of the evidence and come up with an honest overview of the entire situation. I mean, I've been guilty of that in the past when I was a 9/11 truther, when I was a Rothschild.
I think Kit and Richard, thank you for having us on your show. I'll sit quietly. And,
you're welcome. We'll try to get back to the secret societies now.
Secret societies, here we come. Golden Dawn and all the others. And Freemason, thank you. Yeah,
I'll drop
just sit and
out too
listen.
as well.
Thank you.
But thanks, guys, for having me on. Yep. Cheers.
You're welcome, Stu. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
All right, so we've had quite a lot in the chat. It's even difficult for me to see it all. There's a lot about building cities by Freemasons, and whether it's a conspiracy or if it's an agenda or whatever.
Well, they did help build a lot of historical cities, but modern Freemasonry is not based on actual masonry, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. The construction industry, I think, has more to do with the mafia than Freemasons. But there are speculations about lots of cities, especially Rome, was built by Masons who adhered to some of the principles of ancient Freemasonry, which was practical Freemasonry. They left a lot of symbolism on the walls. Even during the power trip of the Catholic Church, they even worked for the Catholic Church at some points and included some symbolism in the work of arts or buildings. But I don't see it as a threat to the cities of the future, personally, at least.
I don't know if, I mean, it does look compelling when there are all these diagrams drawn about from like Washington and stuff, but then I guess some cities are just more well planned than other cities. Like Paris, old Paris was really well planned, and New York was really well planned, and I guess
Indeed.
I guess Washington D.C. was as well. And somebody had to make those plans, and I don't know if what we see there is actual mystical symbols or if it's just geometrical figures.
Well, there are definitely Freemasonic symbols in Washington, since George Washington himself was a Freemason. So he had lots of friends, especially when he died, who built stuff in his honor, and that included a lot of Freemasonry symbolism. So there is a lot to it. That is true. But I don't see it as a threat or any meaning that they have more power than anyone else. I mean, the Catholic Church has symbols all over Washington as well, Protestants. So I don't see why Masons couldn't do it as well.
All right, I think we're coming up to the break, Sean.
Sure. Just give me a sec. So we're back on the show. We had a lot of questions in the chat room that were not necessarily related to secret societies. I had some stuff about 9/11 that I will eventually cover on future shows, but I will try to stick to the original topic for today, because that's what I prepared for. So, Kit, have you gathered some questions that I might have missed?
No, but as we did talk about on the break, I do have this sense that one big secret society couldn't possibly be ruling the world. In my opinion, there are probably loads of powerful interest groups that are trying to push the world in their direction. I think that would be the human way, because as we talked about earlier with the Freemason lodges, there are lots of split-ups because people in power will disagree on stuff, and I'm just not sure that there's any way that there could be a higher order that would agree on everything and have one direction.
I would agree with that. I mean, greedy people tend to be greedy. They don't tend to work as a team, so I don't see that happening. They work against each other's interests most of the time. Someone mentioned the Council on Foreign Relations. That's actually a very good idea to discuss this, because many people call it a secret society, but I don't see what's quite secret about it, because it's mostly a think tank. And most of their documents are actually made public. They suggest policies to governments, but they don't have any real power to implement anything. They can just lobby and suggest, like a lot of groups actually are doing.
Do you think that the Reserve Bank was an event that has the ability, when they took over the Reserve Bank, to push a society in a direction? And do you think that, I believe that there's a lot of societies, and I think it's more corporate entity now, it's gone above and beyond, I think, where it originally started. But I do believe that by using food as a weapon, you can manipulate society as a whole.
Yeah, I think so too, but I think that there are opposite interests doing so. So I don't think it's a grand conspiracy. I think there are definitely evil people out there that use food or money or such things to actually gain control over large groups of people. But I don't think there is a united grand Illuminati group managing the whole thing.
I agree.
And then Kali is bringing up the Bilderberg group, which was actually kind of secret until they were exposed by, I forget who it was. And I think that is the closest we've really gotten to an exposed secret society.
Indeed. Actually, the Bilderberg group is really interesting because it's one of the few secretive groups that I actually have fears about, that I don't trust entirely. Well, there's many groups that I don't trust entirely, but those ones are definitely weird. And they do use tax money to actually fund the travels of people to attend their meetings. And since they do use tax money to fund those travels, I think they should be accountable to the public and they should disclose what they do there. But just because we don't know what they actually do doesn't mean that we can make it up, though.
And somebody's saying, a question for the show, why don't people in power care about the future of their home planet? Well, I guess I don't have an answer to that. I mean, I guess they just have their own idea about what's good for the planet. Maybe it's what's good for them. That they, at least their first priority. I mean, not everybody is concerned about the world that we leave to our kids.
And there's also the fact that there's a lot of incompetent people in power. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but imagine if you had such power, would you be able to manage everything perfectly where everyone would be happy and content? I don't think so. So there's always going to be people that are mad at people in power one way or another. I think some of them are actually do have good intentions. I mean, you can look at people like, I forgot his name, but I think it was Yusuf something, the guy who started the Brahim Bank, which does micro loans. They actually helped poor people in Bangladesh start their own industries and create jobs by lending money to people only if they could prove that they actually needed it. And
with a good plan.
Indeed.
And good business plan. With a good business plan.
Yeah, they did ask the people to provide them with a good business plan and to be accountable for their loans.
And somebody's asking about the royal dynasties, and somebody's asking about the Trilateral Commission.
Well, the Trilateral Commission works a bit like the Council on Foreign Relations. I mean, they are an alliance of powers that do work together, but they don't implement anything. They basically just make suggestions. So I haven't seen anything actually directly implemented by them. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And Prina asked, what about the members, I guess, of the, I don't know if that's of the Bilderberg group or the other societies we've been talking about. Maybe we could get that specified. Do they have influence outside of the organization?
Oh, definitely. I mean, a lot of members of the Bilderberg group have been made public. And there's a lot of head of states, people who are big in the private business world. People who are big in media, so there are definitely people who have big influence attending those meetings. As I said earlier, though, that just because we don't know exactly what they discuss doesn't mean that we can make it up. But there is definitely a case to be worried there.
And I agree. I think the Bilderbergers are fucking creepy.
Yeah.
I do agree, and I wish we knew more about them, but I guess that's the whole point of them being a secret society, that we don't know shit.
Indeed. Someone asked about royal dynasties. Well, those are not very secret. I mean, we pretty much all know about them. I don't know if they have so much power as they used to. In fact, funny thing, the very word New World Order comes from the fact that after the French Revolution, monarchy was pretty much done for. And they called it a new world order where secular government would rule instead of monarchies. So that was actually a good thing at the time. But I don't think they have much power nowadays, at least. They have lots of money, but real power.
But it does seem to me sometimes when I look at my local politics or local to my country politics, that the elected officials don't actually have a lot of power, that they are sort of, no matter what color their political party has, they are sort of just doing the same thing. We have a socialist government at the moment who are implementing conservative policies, and I understand why you would get the feeling that there's somebody else controlling it. If there is, I really don't know. It's just it does seem like that sometimes.
It does, I guess, but I mean, unless we have solid evidence to back it up, it's just theory. But as far as monarchy goes, I don't think so. They wave at people and they wear funny hats. As far as I know, at least.
I know that the English Queen is a lot more involved in politics than our Queen is. Our Queen is basically completely separate from politics, and they are of the same, of course, the same. Or I should say, I'm from Denmark, and they're basically from the same family. So I don't know how much of royal dynasties you can really say that they have power as such, but you could say that specific figures might have some power that they wield.
Well, they do have some kind of diplomatic influence because of the clout that comes with the name, I guess. So you see the Queen attending diplomatic events, Prince Charles as well, and Prince Harry. They do a lot to maintain good relationships between their country and other countries, but I don't see them taking like major decisions.
Right. So I'm hoping that we'll get more callers because this chat is really jumping and I can hardly keep up with it.
Indeed.
If I may, there are many dynasties, and it was brought up, and I asked, which country are you speaking of? Like you brought in England, Denmark, England. There are also dynasties in other countries, and one of them, is, like Papua New Guinea, South Pacific Island, who fought off a really big mining company and actually won. And it was a dynasty. They were brothers and sisters. And they came together. So I think dynasties do have the ability, and name your country, which dynasty are you speaking of, they would appear to be secret, but I'm sure, what is a secret? Something that is in the dark and needs to be brought out to the light or needs light on it. So thank you. Many dynasties in the world. Name your dynasty and your country.
I agree with that. It was just the question was quite openly phrased, so I guess I just took a stab at it from what I knew. Yeah. So one thing I would like to say to our listeners is that this is our first show, and we don't have will not be our usual format. We will usually have one or two guests that of each opinion, and they will debate. And they will be knowledgeable guests, and we're very much looking forward to it. We will also be accepting callers for those shows. So I just wanted to clarify that this is not our normal format.
Indeed. This is very much an experiment. So I think we covered pretty much everything so far. I don't know if anyone wanted to add something. Anyone? Bueller?
A great show, guys. I know this is your first show, and as you said, your format and everything, but I think it's alive. Darkcity is alive. Everybody's live on air, and it's happening now. So if you think you can put a format on that, great. But like you said, there's so many topics, and I think, you're standing here now and discussing very relevant topics. So your format's working for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you.
I will take this opportunity to present next week's show then, if you don't mind, Sean.
Sure.
Next week we will have a chemist and a chemtrail expert discussing chemtrails. What are they? Are they dangerous? What do they have to say on the topic? I'm not an expert on chemtrails, which is why we got somebody else who is. And the chemist will give his opinions on what he thinks of the things that have been found and the different methods and goals that might be behind the chemtrail. So that should be very, very interesting, and I have high hopes for that show.
Yeah, I'm very eager to have that show as well. Actual science. I love it.
We will.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, but I guess apart from that, we can wrap it up, can't we?
Sure. So I think we had a good first experiment. I like how everyone kind of jumped to life and participated eagerly, even in the chat. I like the interaction, so I would like to thank everyone for listening and for participating.
Hi, can I just have 1 second? Brilliant show, what I heard of. You may have noticed I went for a 2-minute lie down and it lasted 2 hours, so my apologies and well done to everybody else. I've noticed there seems to be an underlying desire for people to give up authority to something, someone, anything at all. It doesn't really matter. A government, a conspiracy, a secret order, a group, anything. You seem to just have this urge to give up their energy rather than take responsibility back for themselves. I see a lot of people blaming PSYOPs groups, which most of them were created under the Gladio effect. So yeah, and I'm looking down a lot of the text. Of course, I've missed a lot of it, but you've managed to trigger, I would say, the majority of the people that are there. Subversively or openly, I think the triggers are apparent, and that every individual that stands and defends their position in this needs to reevaluate themselves rather than reevaluate the so-called authority or laws that govern them. And those laws are not given to you; they are not your laws. So yeah, I'm quite impressed with what you managed to do. I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen, but I am very impressed indeed. Well done, well done.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. We were quite worried when you had your little nap there. Been in a bit of a panic. 2 minutes past the hour. But Sudama came through brilliantly for us, and I'm very happy that we are able to do this show on your radio station. I think we're going to have a lot of fun, and let's not forget that apart from imparting information on people, one of the big reasons to even have media is entertainment, and I hope that our show will be entertaining as well as something you can get information from.
So I was answering people on the chat as well at the same time. I'm sorry.
That's okay, but let's call it a wrap and say thank you to our great callers and to Darkcity Radio for having us.
Indeed, and hopefully our format will get better over time. I'm really glad that you people enjoyed it so far, and we'll try to keep it entertaining every week.
Indeed.
If I may, I think you have allocated another 40 minutes of the show, or 20 minutes of the show. I saw
it's their radio,
something.
Susan. It's their radio. It's their radio. Their show. They can do whatever they like.
Yeah. 37 minutes.
Oh, really? Well, I covered pretty much everything I wanted to say.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. This is the choice between having awesome music or having people just backpedaling for 37 minutes.
Well, I guess we could play music, though. I like playing music. Your call.
I think
They said we could not do it. They said it wasn't possible. But we did it. We created a free radio station to bring the people together and spread an alternative message from the mainstream. They tried to silence us. They tried to hack us. But we carried on.